Dracula Dead and Loving It is often thought of as Mel Brooks's worst comedy. It's also thought of as one of the worst Leslie Nielsen movies. But I am coming out today to defend this movie. I think Dracula Dead and Loving It is the most underrated Mel Brooks film, maybe right up there with To Be or Not to Be. That one doesn't seem to be getting a lot of attention these days, but I think Dracula Dead and Loving It is just a super funny movie. I think a lot of the hate it gets stems from the fact that everybody who talks about it wants to compare it to Young Frankenstein, and I don't really think that is a fair comparison. Now, yes, they're both parodies of Universal monster movies, and yes, they were made by the same person, but everybody always calls this a follow-up to Young Frankenstein. And again, I just don't think that that's fair. This wasn't intended to be a spiritual successor or even a sequel to Young Frankenstein. This was meant to stand on its own. If you need proof of that, just reference the fact that Dracula Dead and Loving It was made in color, while Young Frankenstein was in rich, beautiful black and white, specifically to help the two films stand apart. That's because although the plot is a parody of the Universal Dracula, the actual tone and the way the movie is filmed, the blood, the cleavage, the beautiful yet kind of pallid colors, it all references to the Hammer horror films. So yeah, I'm not willing to say that this film is bad simply because Dracula Dead and Loving It is not recognized by the majority of people as a classic and Young Frankenstein is. That does not make a movie bad. It just means you probably need to look at it on its own merits instead of comparing it to something that is only tangentially related. I also believe that this movie was made with a lot of thought and attention, and yes, I think it does have themes in it. And so, I know some people will say, oh, it's just a Mel Brooks comedy, you're reading too deep into it, calm down. But what I want to just say is, first off, Mel Brooks is an incredibly smart man, and a lot of his comedies do have themes, some of them very subtle. And another thing is, just because a movie is a comedy doesn't mean it isn't intelligent. And anybody who tells you that just because a film is a comedy means that the film is automatically dumb, well, honestly, I don't think they have an opinion worth listening to. Okay, with that little rant out of the way, let's talk about the movie. It opens with an opening credit sequence that is so cool and so gothic and rich that I actually think it could have been from a real Dracula movie. This is one of the strong suits of a lot of Mel Brooks's parodies. He treats them very seriously. He understands what made the thing he's parodying a classic, unlike, for instance, the Scary Movie franchise, or the Movie franchise, as it's sometimes called now, which is just hell-bent on referencing so many things that it forgets to ever parody the thing it's actually supposed to be a parody of. Mel Brooks always is very focused. It's nice to see, by the way, that Mel Brooks is kind of getting a new lease on life. He's come back as a director, but for a long time, Dracula Dead and Loving It was considered his last film. People didn't think he was ever going to come back and make another one. Another thing about these opening credits is the artwork that is used. The art really steers you into that sexual aspect of Dracula, just like the Young Frankenstein movie steered you into the Freudianism of womb envy. In fact, I think Young Frankenstein may be the only movie version of Frankenstein, ironically, to get the theme correct. I know a lot of people want to say that Frankenstein is about playing God, but I don't think it is. I think it's about Dr. Frankenstein having womb envy. He wants to be able to have a child in the way a woman can, but he cannot do that because he's a man. This steers you into the Victorian theme of repression versus expression of sexuality. And by the way, I'm not saying that repression is always a bad thing or sexual expression is always a good thing, but I do think that's what Mel Brooks was exploring in this movie. Some of you may say, oh, come on, it's a Mel Brooks movie, like you're reading way too deeply into it. But I think a lot of people underestimate how smart Mel Brooks is. And I think a lot of people underestimate how much thought he put into his movies. And I'm going to talk more about that because there's a lot of Freudian slips, a lot of weird little moments involving the Victorian way that people would repress their sexual desires, and a lot of really kind of glamorizing, funny enough, the sexuality between Dracula and some of the other characters. Of course, Francis Ford Coppola also touched on the sexual aspect of Dracula, but in his movie, it was more about how everybody is just deviants, and that's kind of it. So yes, I actually do think this is smarter than a lot of real Dracula movies. The opening map painting is a reference to the Universal film, which opens with a map painting of the Carpathian Mountain region, and it's really cool. They even add a little motion to it. I always love old school map paintings. Like with all Mel Brooks films, there's just such a love for these characters. That's what I love about Mel Brooks. Even if some of his jokes don't land, his characters are always so likable that you enjoy having a silly adventure with them, even if some of the jokes are kind of like dad jokes. I've always thought that this was the real strength of Mel Brooks. It's not necessarily that he's hysterical all the time, it's just that he's a really good writer.
Yes, I have business with the Count.
You must not go.
But you don't understand. I'm expected. Ta!
Personally, Peter MacNicol's performance as Renfield kind of makes this movie for me. I've always enjoyed watching him more than anybody else. He parodies Dwight Frye as well as the movie itself parodies the idea of Dracula. He's a really good Dwight Frye. We also get lots of fun little references like Madame Oponstaye, which is the last name of the woman who played the gypsy in The Wolfman. That's not even a Dracula reference, it's just kind of cool.
Take the cross. It's holy love and spirit of goodness.
Oh, no, really, no, thank you. Damn it, take the cross. Of course.
I love that joke. It always cracks me up. Dracula's intro is a little bit understated, but it does that to set up for the fantastic parody of the Gary Oldman shadow routine. You see, in the Gary Oldman Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, there is a kind of a running thing where Dracula's shadow acts of its own accord. Well, they do that in this movie, and ironically, they kind of do the effect a little bit better than in the real version. And what's funny is the shadow is always kind of a punchline to some other joke. So you're already kind of chuckling at something else that may be mildly funny, and the shadow shows up and kind of has a funnier joke sometimes than the setup.
I am Count. Dracula.
Although I do enjoy slapstick, I do find the pratfall that we introduce Dracula with is a little bit much, but the payoff is really good, and it involves Leslie Nielsen's shadow.
It would take much more than that to hurt me.
There's also a great parody of the Universal Dracula where Dracula seems to walk through a spider web, and in this version, he does the same, and Renfield tries to do it too, and then just gets caught up in the web. This is kind of a running thing for Renfield too, because later, Dracula flies, and Renfield just assumes he can do the same and jumps out the window. There's another little fun joke at the Gary Oldman Dracula's expense, when we see that he has that same sort of butt wig style that Gary Oldman wears, but then Leslie Nielsen takes it off, and it turns out it's actually a hat. And I think the characters are always the best part of any Mel Brooks film, and this one's no exception. And you would expect Dracula would be one of the best characters. I think it's really fun how Dracula has this constant feeling of superiority, and he's always impatient with everybody, like he knows he's surrounded by idiots, and he just wishes that anybody was as smart as him. This also kind of sets up for when he meets Van Helsing, and it kind of injures his ego that somebody is as smart as him, so it's like he kind of can't win. I like that. There's also this great joke where in the Universal films, both the Spanish and English versions, Renfield cuts himself, and there's this huge moment of drama where Dracula is really obvious about wanting to eat the blood off of Renfield's fingers. And it's a really over-the-top moment in both the English and Spanish version. And so it's just rife for parody, and what I think is really fun is that Renfield cuts himself, and he nips like a vein or something in his finger, in the fingers just squirting an unusual amount of blood all over the room. And Leslie Nielsen's reaction is great too. Here we get some more of that repression as a theme, where Renfield is visited by the brides of Dracula. This moment happens in both the Universal film and in a really over-the-top way in the Francis Ford Coppola movie. But unlike in the Coppola movie, where Jonathan Harker is just a deviant, Renfield is so repressed that he doesn't even realize it's arousing or attractive to him. His concern is,
My God! What are you doing to the furniture?
come on, guys. There's no way anybody doesn't find that funny. It's also funny to see Dracula scold the women and say he's disappointed in them. This, by the way, is one of my favorite jokes in the movie.
And stop that!
And it's followed by one of my other favorite jokes in the movie.
Grinding, heaving. How to describe it? Have you ever been to Paris?
Dracula puts Renfield under a spell to make him his slave throughout eternity. And here we get more of that Dracula just trying to deal with the imbeciles he's surrounded by.
Your eyelids are getting heavy. You feel that... What a simpleton.
Now, the scene on the Demeter is just hysterical to me. And again, it's kind of hard to defend a comedy as underrated without just saying, this is funny, that's funny. But that's what I always hear people saying is, well, Dracula Dead and Loving It just wasn't funny. I just have to respectfully disagree. And I think if these jokes were in Young Frankenstein or any of his other movies, History of the World Part 1, I think people would find these jokes funny. I think the reason they don't find them funny is because critics told you you're not supposed to like this movie, and so you've probably never seen it, and you're just parroting that opinion. You need to go and watch this movie yourself because it really is funny. I think I'm overthinking the whole sexual repression thing. Jonathan outright says this line.
The music is fraught with love, hate, sensuality, and unbridled passion. All the things in my life I've managed to suppress.
And that's our intro to his character. Jonathan, by the way, is played by Steven Weber, and he is accompanied by Dr. Seward, who is played by Harvey Korman. Lysette Anthony as Lucy, and the incomparable Amy Yasbeck as Mina. Amy Yasbeck you might know from Robin Hood Men in Tights, but she's been in a ton of things. She is a really, really funny actress, and I always thought she had something kind of Madeline Kahn-esque about her that I've just always greatly enjoyed. A funny and kind of subtle joke is all of the terrible accents. Harvey Korman's accent in particular is one of the worst I've ever heard, and he's purposely exaggerating his English isms in the way he says certain words. It's really funny. Amy Yasbeck also does maybe the only Southern Belle English accent I've ever heard. We get a great little parody of the brainwashing scene where Dracula commands an usher to go and tell Seward that he needs to speak to Dracula. But then he accidentally tells the woman, "You will remember nothing of what I tell you," and doesn't specify that she will forget it after delivering the message. So when she opens the curtain, she just forgets to tell them anything. And Dracula gets upset with her. Again, showing that he is just feels like he's surrounded by idiots and nobody can ever do the job right. And he has to always go and do it himself. I love that aspect of this Dracula. Another fun thing is that Lysette Anthony as Lucy is deliberately sexed up, while Mina, even while showing cleavage, still comes across as more modest and innocent. This is a more exaggerated version of the way the actors were presented in the original Universal film. Of course, you can get away with more in this sort of film at this time period. Lucy is wearing red, her dress is cut lower, and she has this interchange with Dracula with some double entendres in it, which only Lucy seems to understand because she is not repressing her sexuality. Later on, Lucy is stripping in front of her window, hoping Dracula can see her. This again shows her sexual freedom. Dracula flying into the window is another one of those pratfall sort of moments. I don't find it particularly funny, but it's a setup to a joke that is really funny, where Dracula hides from Seward and Jonathan. You see, they heard the noise of Dracula hitting the window and came to investigate. And they do investigate, like only people in a horror movie can.
Out here. Nothing amiss here either. Oh, what a relief. I'm very confident there's no danger here whatsoever.
Now, Dracula falling down should have been cut quicker because you can tell it's a dummy. The editing in this film does fail it a few times, and it makes me think perhaps if they had a different editor, the film might have been better received. It may have been cut a little quicker, and the jokes may have come across a little bit better. The three glaring examples that I've seen is here when the dummy is held on for much too long. Another scene where Van Helsing and Jonathan are just kind of standing, waiting to walk into the scene, and on the Demeter, where the shot of Renfield's foot being caught in the loop probably would have been funnier if it was played in the wide shot. We come back to Renfield, who is in a sanatorium, just like in the Universal version, and we get this great joke with, well, just watch it.
Renfield, I can't take it. Can you take it? Walls are closing in on me. I've got to get out of here.
Guard, get back to work!
That's right, this sanatorium is so bad even the guards are desperate to escape. Renfield has tea with Dr. Seward, and this is my favorite scene in the movie. Some parts I'm going to have to cut down, but I want to show you some of it so you get a sense of why this scene is so funny.
Oh, we would just like to perform a few tests, that's all, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
I was just telling Mom. What was that?
Oh, that was a raspberry.
Raspberry? We're not serving raspberries.
But it must have been a raisin. Yes, it fell off the muffin. There, seems to be one missing.
Yes.
That's extraordinary.
How silly of me. Must have been my imagination. I tell you, I saw you snatch a spider right out of the air and eat it.
A spider?
Lucy wakes up and is fretfully pale and wan.
It's Lucy.
What's the matter with her?
Well, I don't know. She's frightfully pale and wan.
Pale? Wan?
Now, I thought this when I was a kid, and I stand by it as an adult. Steven Weber could have actually been a good Jonathan in a serious Dracula movie.
I had a dream.
Oh, yes? What about that dream?
We're actually going to talk about him probably next month in another thing I'm going to be reviewing. He seems to be having the best time of everybody in this movie, though, because he is often trying to hide his smile, or trying not to crack up while other people are playing it straighter. I've always kind of liked that. I don't find it distracting. It's charming. You can see Steven Weber is having a great time making this movie. We then meet Van Helsing, who might have the best introduction of any character in any comedy ever.
It is not unusual for some members of the freshman class to feel a bit faint. Don't worry, there's plenty to go around.
Oh, Professor! 10 out of 10.
I still got it.
It's an emergency.
An emergency?
Emergency. Man, listen, you can say what you want, but this movie is so quotable.
I'm drinking wine and eating chicken. I was having a daymare.
Will shield you from the lurking danger.
Renfield, I don't care.
No tip.
Oh, that you remember.
She will become one herself.
She's dead enough.
Closer, you silly boy.
You stupid nincompoop.
I didn't know.
There's a little scene where Dracula dreams that he's woken up in the sunlight and he's cured of his vampirism. It's kind of tangential, but it really is very funny, particularly the way they poke fun at some of the lines that you hear in every Dracula movie, like, I never drink wine. Dr. Van Helsing comes to investigate what's got Lucy feeling so ill.
3 tiny puncture marks on her throat.
3?
2. 2 tiny puncture marks on her throat.
He must work for the CDC.
We have entered the realm of the supernatural.
Oh no, he works for the WHO. So Van Helsing prescribes that he put garlic all over Lucy's room to make sure that she's protected from the evil of the vampire. Funny enough, I went to a Catholic church once that smelled just like this room. There's a great reference to the Frank Langella Dracula as Leslie Nielsen climbs down and hangs upside down through the window. And the upside-down conversation here is really funny to me. So Renfield goes in and tries to remove the garlic, but he gets distracted because he's a freaking pervert.
Renfield, you idiot.
I'm weak. I've strayed.
I caught him lifting up the sheets and looking at me.
Man, you couldn't get away with doing this joke now, could you?
I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. I saw everything.
You really could not get away with doing this joke now, could you? So Dracula gets a hold of Lucy, bites her again, drains her of all her blood, and she dies. Van Helsing then tells them about Lucy's potential vampirization.
Lucy was my ward. I won't permit you to desecrate her body in such a vile manner.
Now, this is a great line. It shows more of that subtle sexual undertone. A ward is typically a child under somebody's legal care. Think about Dick Grayson in Batman. But Lucy is clearly like 30-something. She's not a ward to Dr. Seward. Very likely she's well, something else. And they're hiding it under the guise of her being his ward. Now, could this be why she's sexually freer than Mina? Because she's used to, Either way, I just think it's really ironic when you read into it like that he would say the line, "I won't allow you to desecrate her body." Huh. They also parody the original 30s film again with this little line.
The furthest stretch of the imagination could possibly be a vampire.
Count Dracula.
Well, maybe him.
Van Helsing and Dracula briefly have an exchange about Vlad Tepes, the first Dracula.
He was a bloodthirsty butcher who inflicted unspeakable tortures on the peasants and then impaling them on iron spikes.
They had it coming.
I'm sorry. Who out there can seriously tell me that that is not hysterical? When we see Lucy return as a vampire, it's actually a great horror scene, very Hammer horror-esque. Jonathan goes to keep watch over Lucy, and when Lucy is kind of reborn as a vampire, we get some of the best jokes.
Unbridled sexual frenzy.
But Lucy, I'm British.
So are these.
Lucy!
Yet again, more of that sexual repression as a theme. But the theme, just like in Young Frankenstein, never gets in the way of the jokes. The staking scene is also as funny as anything Mel Brooks ever came up with. I mean, this is a funny scene.
Hit her again!
I can't.
How much blood can she have left?
Dracula enchants Mina to steal her away in a scene that's straight out of Young Frankenstein, actually.
Stand up. Not you. Sit. No, not you. You sit. You stand. You walk to the terrace door and you go back to sleep. Watch out!
Again, this is just hilarious. I don't care what any critics say, okay? This is frickin' funny. Dracula and Mina have a big elaborate dance sequence, which is a parody of actually quite a short scene in the Coppola movie. It's a kind of a strange thing to parody in a way, but it is kind of fun to think like, since that moment in the Coppola movie is so kind of like dramatic, it is funny to just kind of overblow it into its own scene and be like, yeah, not only are they going to dance, they're going to be like dancing with the stars, have a whole routine. Mina becoming a vampiress is just as funny as Lucy because she tries to seduce Jonathan. Now, of course, funny enough, you would think since they're like engaged that this would be an easier sell, but actually it's not because Jonathan is such a prude that he's like desperately trying to stop her.
Closer, you silly boy. Never really explored each other.
Of course, my dear. Anything.
Touch this.
Don't mind if I do.
I'll touch you.
Maybe it's a silly thing to comment on, but I also just love the way Steven Weber says, "What's come over you?"
What's come over you?
Then Seward comes in and catches them, and Mina blames Jonathan for it.
He laid his hands on me.
Oh, she told me to touch it! After being engaged to my daughter for only 5 years.
Engaged only 5 years. Yep. Now that's what I'm talking about with the repression. You see this in the original 1930 Dracula as well, very clearly, actually. The sexually freer Mina becomes, the more dangerous she is. She must be suppressed until the promiscuity is completely stamped out of her. Now, I think it's great that some of the lines that are funny in this are funny because they're actually in the original Universal Dracula. Like the line about Renfield bending the bars of his cell as if they were cheese. That's a weird line we hear in the original movie. I mean, it really makes no sense. Who on earth would compare cheese as something that you would bend, you know? They hold a dance in order to discover the vampire, and the plan is actually super clever. I really like this plan. It could be in a real Dracula movie. There's also a great moment where Renfield and Dracula both realize that something's up about this, and Dracula keeps telling Renfield not to call him master.
Yes, master.
Do not call me master.
Yes, ma.
Mina and Dracula dance together, and when everybody reacts, really in horror, Dracula misunderstands it, again, because he's so conceited. He thinks everybody's like, oh, wow, they must be good. So they do a huge routine, again, Dancing with the Stars style, very overblown. In this entire sequence, it's actually super well done, and the special effects hold up really well, and that's because most of it is miming and wire work. There's very little in the way of digital manipulation. There's one green screen shot where the lighting's a little bit off, but there's not a lot of digital trickery at work. For the most part, it's being done for real, and it holds up super well. Dracula realizes his mistake. You see, some of the jokes, like I said earlier, are not great jokes in and of themselves, but they set up for better jokes like this.
He called Dracula master.
I thought he said Mr.
That was only a ruse to fool the feeble-minded. No offense.
Renfield gets thrown in jail.
Here till you rot.
Only to get immediately taken out of jail.
Well, you're free to go.
They allow Renfield to lead them to the castle where Dracula is trying to escape. Now, this is great because in the original Bela Lugosi Dracula really just wastes precious time by punishing Renfield then and there. And in this version, instead of begging for his life, Renfield is begging to be punished. So Dracula is like, I don't have time, I've got to get away. But Renfield is like, no, I betrayed you, you must punish me. And it's a really great parody of that moment. Now Dracula is seconds from biting Mina when Seward and Jonathan and Van Helsing break in, and we get a payoff to the shadow joke. There's a great moment where Dracula is monologuing to Jonathan, and Jonathan just pokes him in the eyes, Three Stooges style.
Can do to stop me.
Ow!
And again, we get kind of the ultimate payoff to that repression theme, because Dracula's ultimate punishment to Jonathan for interfering is that he wants Jonathan to be alive to watch him consummate his marriage to Mina. He literally wants to cuck Jonathan over, and that is the ultimate punishment. Again, it is kind of subtle. Probably nobody else in the whole world has ever thought as deeply about this movie as I have. I'll admit that. But when you look at the theming, just like when you look at womb envy and Freudian psychology in Young Frankenstein, it's there. It's clearly there. And it's even more clearly here, the theme of sexual repression and sexual freedom, as explored in this movie than it was in that movie. There's Freudianisms all throughout High Anxiety, which of course, it's about a therapist. So, there's a lot to see in Mel Brooks movies. There's a lot to explore and a lot to think about beyond just the comedy. And that's why I think I might be the first person ever to do an analysis of a Mel Brooks movie on YouTube. But I'm doing it because although I'm going to be called silly and stupid by a lot of people, I want you to think deeply about this. I want you to really give him appreciation, not just as a comedian, but as a really great writer. Dracula transforms into a bat, and Steven Weber shows that he can jump pretty high for a white guy. Dracula hides in bat form up in the rafters, but Renfield, trying to help Dracula escape, accidentally lets the sunlight in and kills Dracula.
Renfield, you asshole! What's happened to
He's dead.
Yeah.
You're my own sweet, innocent Mina. Again.
And see that line? For Mina to be quote-unquote normal, she has to be innocent. Renfield collects the dust of Dracula, puts it in the coffin, and draws a smiley face. My gosh, it's kind of sad. Now, there's a great running joke throughout the film that Dracula and Van Helsing are both trying to have the last word, and we end with Van Helsing finally getting the last word. Now, if there's any other fans of this movie out there, I need somebody to confirm this for me. I know when I was younger, I saw a TV edit of this movie where during the end credits, you heard Leslie Nielsen say, Sylvania, and then laugh because he actually did get the last word over Van Helsing. However, my DVD copy does not have that. It does in fact give Mel Brooks the last word at the end. I'm not sure if it was just the TV cut or if there are multiple versions of this movie, but I need somebody out there to tell me if anybody else remembers that. Again, I know, you'll call me stupid, you'll call me silly, you're reading too much into this, bro, it's a comedy, what are you doing? But forget the interpretation, forget the analysis for a second, and just hear me out. Dracula Dead and Loving It gets a lot of hate, and I've never understood why. It is a great comedy. It's hysterical. Sure, some moments don't land, some jokes don't entirely work, but that's the case with every Mel Brooks movie, including Young Frankenstein, including The History of the World Part 1, including Spaceballs, including Robin Hood Men in Tights. Every one of his movies have moments like that. And this is as good a parody of Dracula as Young Frankenstein was a parody of the Frankenstein movies. And I think comparing them is not exactly comparing apples to apples. So that's the hill I'm willing to die on, people. Dracula Dead and Loving It is a great movie. It's a great comedy. It does not deserve to be seen as one of Mel Brooks' worst. It does not deserve to be seen as one of Leslie Nielsen's worst. It is a really fun time with some characters who are so wonderful to go on this adventure with that they will stick with you for a lifetime. God knows, I think I saw this movie when I was like 4 or 5 for the first time, and I'm 30 now, and I still watch it every year. And if you're somebody like me who really looks for and likes to find Halloween-related comedies, this one should be right up your alley. So that's all I have for today, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you, and I will see you in the next one.